number of different ways for consumers to enjoy games. And the fact that two of the most popular games today, don't have loot boxes, I think is a healthy sign for the industry as we present ourselves as providing consumers multiple different ways of experiencing games. So thank you for sharing that perspective. What I would like to do with the time that I have is talk a little bit more about that other aspect, and that are the loot boxes. A number of our other members do use loot boxes, and virtually all of our members have microtransactions in some form or another. And this issue is not one, just to be clear, where it's loot boxes or microtransactions. It started that way a couple of years ago, focused mostly on loot boxes, but it's gotten much bigger over the past. Well, heading into 2021, this will be the third year that we've been wrangling with this issue, and it's expanded to kind of include microtransactions more broadly. What I'd like to do is give a quick overview of the legal landscape, and then I'll get into some policy at the end. Three key points I want to hit upon are academic research, government studies, and litigation, because those are the three vectors of attack against the industry when it comes to loot boxes and microtransactions. And I think it's important that you have that big picture view to help understand where we want to go as an industry on this issue through ESA. So academic research basically comes down to one guy. There's a guy in the UK called Professor Zendel at the University of York who's made it the focus of his professional career at the moment to study loot boxes and microtransactions. He is kicking out studies with enormous speed. At first, they were rather primitive and not, had some methodological errors and were rather limited in scope. They've gradually, over time, become more sophisticated, better methodology, broader sample size, that sort of thing. And they're a little bit expanding beyond loot boxes to now looking at microtransactions, although that data is still forthcoming. The general upshot of these studies are that he concludes there's some sort of correlation between opening loot boxes and possible problem gambling behavior. Not sure if it's one, it could be that someone who's predisposed to problem gambling is drawn to loot boxes, or that someone who's enjoys loot boxes develops that affinity for gambling experiences. The data doesn't show. What we've seen so far is that there's some indication of a possible relationship, no indication of causation. But as you can imagine, when lawmakers hear about those studies, it raises questions about the industry. And so that's one vector where we're having to manage that situation. The other is there's been a series of government studies. One's underway right now in the UK. The UK government, in response to an inquiry that happened last year with one of their departments that oversees video games, started looking at, is doing a call for evidence, which is sort of what we would do like a notice of inquiry or something like that from one of our agencies. Basically, they're doing a landscape review of loot boxes and drawing in all sorts of data on how they work and also on microtransactions, and trying to get a better understanding of that. The end goal will be that the UK government will revisit their gambling statute at some point in the near future and may tweak it to address loot boxes depending upon how this call for evidence goes. ESA is coordinating with our sister trade group, ghtshjyuk, in the UK, who is leading the industry effort on that and preparing a filing that will be submitted later this month. There's also, of course, the FTC report. When I spoke with you last year, we had just finished presenting to the FTC. The report has come out, and the report had a few recommendations that odds disclosures be non-misleading, that the industry address the real money costs of loot boxes, and that they continue to provide meaningful disclosures. But there was no call for a change in the law or any sort of heavy, restrictions on the industry. It was more just be careful, provide appropriate disclosures, we're monitoring the situation. Now, that's not the case with the state of Hawaii. Hawaii's legislature commissioned a study last year to look into loot boxes. And it took about a year to get it done, and it just was released last month. There are 4 key areas that were covered in this study. I'm going to go through these quickly, but I think it's important you hear them because our sense is that this Hawaii study is going to be something that AGs and lawmakers in other states look to as another data source for deciding whether to regulate in microtransactions and loot boxes. One is on the issue of one of the areas they focus on is consumer protection. Are the odds disclosures working? Are they clear? Are they transparent?